Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the final part of today's show. We hope you've enjoyed this show so far, but stay tuned because we've still got a lot to come. Now it's time to hear from our resident life coach, Sister Sidra Zaidi. Let's see what she has to say today.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sidra, and this week's topic is all about procrastination, and talk about what actually is procrastination and why do people procrastinate. In my years of studies, what I've come to realize that procrastination is basically fear in disguise. And it could be any fear: fear of failure, fear of not getting it right, fear of judgment, fear of success, fear of not being good enough. And when we have all these fears, it manifests itself into procrastination, holding things back, thinking, let me do everything else but the task. You distract yourself, you play games. People play games with themselves by not actually doing what they need to do because they're holding on to all these fears. And the one big thing about procrastination and how to get over it is to say to yourself that I don't have to get it right, I just have to get it going. And once you let go of that fear of getting it right or fear of not being good enough, and just consistently say to yourself, I don't have to get it right, I just have to get it going. When you start the task, you will actually realize that it wasn't really a big deal. So the fear of actually starting the task is a lot more than actually doing it. So when you keep saying to yourself, I don't have to get it right, I just have to get it going consistently and just get on with it, you will feel that things were not as big as they felt. Because fear is actually false evidence appearing real. It's in our mind. And once we sort ourselves in our mind, things will shift. Thank you very much. If you want further information on me or procrastination, please email me sidra@myjourneytohappiness.com. Assalamu alaikum.
That's really interesting, and actually that reminds me of a well-known play I'm sure everyone knows, Hamlet by Shakespeare, where often the people discuss the theme in it of procrastination. Why does Hamlet procrastinate so much about his anger towards his mother marrying his uncle? And when we were discussing procrastination, this was years back, but it's still, I think, an issue today. Often people say it's giving you that little bit of time, isn't it, to really think, and it means that you're unsure about something. However, obviously, Sidra has said that it's a fear, actually. It's a fear of failure. And I think if we apply that, actually, and if we have a think about how we act, I think often, probably it is a fear of failure, and we avoid approaching a certain topic or doing something that we know we have to do because we're scared of looking stupid or that it'll go wrong. And actually, I know it's very easy to say, but if we could just perhaps put that concept of failing to a side, we will probably be succeeding in a lot of things that we haven't actually attempted in the first place.
I agree, and it's really hard for us to identify our fears. So hearing Sidra say that you're putting something off because you're afraid of the outcome, or you're afraid of failing, for example, that's interesting to hear because we don't admit to ourselves when we are afraid of something. So we won't say that I'm putting this off because I'm afraid. That's difficult for someone to admit. But hearing her say it like that, and you put it into perspective, and you think actually maybe that is a reason that we put off doing certain things, or put off even when it's learning about something, or making that phone call to a long lost friend, or anything that you might put off. I think that's interesting to hear.
I agree, and I also think that it's something that is really irritating for other people when perhaps they're expecting something of you and you need to do something and you're just putting it off. So hopefully we should be able to learn from that and really stop putting things off and stop being afraid of actually failing, because actually everyone fails something in life, and even from failure we learn and we can improve on ourselves for the future, and so hopefully we can all take something away from what Sidra said today.
I hope so. Right, it's almost time for us to wrap up, but just before we do, we've got time for Book of the Week. So, Humera, what are we looking at this week?
Okay, this week we are looking at Monica Ali's Brick Lane. And I chose this book because of the fact that I love I really love how their focus is on East London and its changing nature. I don't come from East London myself, but I love the history behind East London. I know that it's a place that a lot of people sort of moved to during the 60s and 50s, etc. We all know that there's lots of restaurants there, and life there is actually very vibrant, and a lot of that is to do with the people who moved there in the first place. I know that East London is historic in terms of British history as well, but I love how it's changed from being so British to being very diverse in terms of ethnic minorities living there as well. And I think this book, what it does is it kind of, in a way, it shows that, because it focuses on one family who are living there, their trials and tribulations, their family life, and it's interesting because they show the wife, from the wife's perspective, how difficult perhaps she's finding life married to someone she's not necessarily happy with, but her children, who are very different to her, getting on with life at school, and how they find it hard to interact or understand perhaps where the other generation are coming from. I think, that's a huge problem within our community, and I think that's slowly changing. But, that idea of the elder generation not understanding where the younger generation are coming from. And the fact that it's set in Brick Lane, which for me is like the heart of kind of a diversity in a sense when you're thinking about London, is really interesting. And I just know, even, on a personal note, when me and my family go there to eat, for example, I love how you see the street signs, etc., and they're all written in like Bengali or different languages. And that's one of the things that's great about this country, is that it's so accommodating. And I think the people living in a certain area reflect, even in the environment, what the place is actually like. So Brick Lane, it focuses, like I said, on a family, and it's kind of looking at the changing relationships. And without kind of giving too much away, it does, what I like about it is, without sounding soppy, that it does end on a kind of happy ending, where the wife and the husband come to an understanding, the children seem to come to an understanding. And I think that it's left on a positive note, that although the relationships have shifted coming to this country, in terms of, how you react with your family, respect, understanding, although that's all shifted, there is a platform that you can all meet on where somehow you can kind of understand each other and you can move on from there. And that's why I like Brick Lane, because of how it shows the diversity, it shows an understanding of a different culture, and actually how you can work together in a new environment to build on that as well.
So the parents moved to London. They were the first generation. Were the kids very young at that time, or were they born here and kind of brought up here?
The kids are born here, and there's one. I think there's two teenage girls, and the elder one in particular seems to have a lot of friction with her father. And I think that's probably natural. That's teenhood. But at the same time, I think the father is very set in his ways. He's not often at home because he's working. And so the mother is trying to kind of find a way for the daughter and for her husband to communicate, and as well as having issues herself as well, with her attitude, with the attitude of her husband. And she begins working from home, and slowly it's kind of a tale. It's woven in, this idea of a woman becoming independent slowly. And I think, although that kind of leads, without giving the story away, it leads to a bit of trouble at the same time. What I like about it is that she almost discovers herself, and therefore becomes more aware of what she wants, what she knows. And that's why I think that it kind of ends on a positive note with her and her husband, because she's been through a journey. She's been through ups and downs, and she realises at the end what she wants.
That issue of father and daughter, which you mentioned, me as well, coming from a family of girls, and yourself as well, it's something that kind of transcends culture and religion as well. You often have that issue where fathers and daughters don't necessarily always talk and always communicate. But actually, when you look at our Islamic history and the traditions that we hear from our prophets and from the Ahl Bayt alayhim as-salam, that connection between fathers and daughters is immensely strong. So that's an interesting theme for you to have picked out of the book, also coming from a family of girls yourself. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a movie, wasn't there, about Brick Lane? Is that right?
There is a movie that's been released. I still, as I always say, I still think the book is actually better. But there's one particular incident in here with a computer that really makes me laugh, because the father goes out and buys a computer and keeps it at home. He's very protective about it. It really makes me laugh because it reminds me of my dad as well, you know. And I think actually it's a symbol of how even the older generation, having said that they're set in their ways, life is almost forcing them to move on and to start adapting to new technology if they want to progress, if they want to do well. And it's a funny story. It just reminds me of my father. He's very into his computers, etc. But like you said, I think coming from a family of girls myself, I understand that you can't blame them. The older generation, they've moved to a new place. They don't understand the environment. They don't necessarily know what they should be protecting their children from or not. And that kind of leads to a little bit of friction. And like you said, it's so beautiful when you look at the examples of the Ahlul Bayt, alayhi salam, where, you know, they've got such a close relationship with their daughters. The Prophet, peace be upon him, used to stand up every time Lady Fatima alayhi salam used to come into the room. And, you know, I think, you know, not to kind of come away from the book, excuse me, not to come away from the book, we need to kind of think about that in terms of the relationships in here as well, and how perhaps we should be a little bit more understanding towards the older generation as well.
Interesting. I like that when you can read books, and even though they're fiction books, you can take more from it than just the fictional story, and it's more than just a pastime. If it makes you think, then I think it's worth spending that time reading it. So, excellent. Thank you very much. Very good choice of book. Right, that brings us to the end of the show this week. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Just before we go, we want to remind you of a competition that we're running, auctioning Brother Adil Abadi's painting. Just take a very quick look at this. Don't forget, we have a painting on auction this week from Brother Adil Abadi. The painting says Iqra, which is the first word that was revealed in the Holy Quran. If you would like to bid for this painting, please email us at morningbreak@ahlulbayt.tv stating how much you'd like to bid. The highest bidder will win the painting, and all the proceeds will go to Ahlul Bayt TV. Don't forget, if you have questions or comments for us, please do write to us at morningbreak@ahlulbayt.tv. We'll see you this time next week. Take care.
And once you let go of that fear of getting it right or fear of not being good enough, and just consistently say to yourself, I don't have to get it right, I just have to get it going. When you start the task, you will actually realize that it wasn't really a big deal. So the fear of actually starting the task is a lot more than actually doing it. So when you keep saying to yourself, I don't have to get it right, I just have to get it going consistently.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the final part of today's show. We hope you've enjoyed this show so far, but stay tuned because we've still got a lot to come. Now it's time to hear from our resident life coach, Sister Sidra Zaidi. Let's see what she has to say today.
Assalamu alaikum, and just get on with it. You will feel that things were not as big as they felt, because fear is actually false evidence appearing real. It's in our mind. And once we sort ourselves in our mind, things will shift. Thank you very much. If you want further information on me or procrastination, please email me, sidra@myjourneytohappiness.com. Assalamu alaikum. Fears, it manifests itself into procrastination, holding things back, thinking, let me do everything else but the task. You distract yourself, you play games. People play games with themselves by not actually doing what they need to do because they're holding on to all these fears. And the one big thing about procrastination and how to get over it is to say to yourself that I don't have to get it right, I just have to get it going. My name is Sidra, and this week's topic is all about procrastination, and talk about what actually is procrastination and why do people procrastinate. In my years of studies, what I've come to realize that procrastination is basically fear in disguise. And it could be any fear: fear of failure, fear of not getting it right, fear of judgment, fear of success, fear of not being good enough. And when we have all these